Yo. So if you watched my last video or my last couple of videos, you probably know that I started reading this book called The Artist's Way. I'm gonna actually say the author's name this time. The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. Cameron. And in case you didn't watch those videos, this book is essentially the subtext says, what does the subtext say? It says a spiritual path to higher creativity. And it's essentially a book about breaking out of your creative block. I'm thirsty as shit. Breaking out of your creative block. And if you've been following this journey of mine, first of all, I appreciate it if you have, but if you've been following this journey of mine, you know that I've been probably dealing with the most insane creative block of what feels like my entire life. Because not only does it feel like my creativity has been blocked, but it also feels like I have like less time than I've ever had in my life because of my lifestyle, because of my job. And so it's in the past, like let's say when I was in school and I felt like I was in a creative block, even though in school I also had very little time, because if you went to music school, you know how that shit is. Like, music school was brutal, but we were surrounded by music all day. So we were still in a creative-ish environment, and we still had, even though we thought we didn't have time, we still had more time than we thought. Like, because right now, I don't got no time. So basically, this creative block has been interesting, because not only does it feel like there's a block, but it also feels like there's limited time to deal with the block, to address the block. And so I picked up the book. I mean, multiple artists have talked about the book. Doechii talked about the book. J. Cole talked about the book. And I'm sure other artists have too. So I was just like, yo, I'm going to check this out because I need to get the fuck out of this block. And so I've actually been reading the book for some time, but it's not just a book. It's like a course as well. It's an interactive read. It has exercises. It just has exercises, questions to ask yourself and answer and journal about, and assignments and tasks. And this video specifically is, I was inspired to record this video because I realized when I went, and I didn't realize that even though I heard Doechii talk about the book, I heard that J. Cole talked about the book, I actually went and I saw that Doechii actually has a YouTube, a YouTube docu-series about each week of the task. That, like I said, it's a 12-week course, and then each week it gives you something to read and things to do. And those things to do, I've been doing some of those things. Not all of them. I've been doing some of them. I've been doing the ones that I kind of wanted to do and just like moving on. I like to read, so I was treating it more like a book than a course. And so I got to week 6, and then I was just like, week 6 gave me so much to do, and I didn't feel like doing any of it. And then I remembered that not only in the book does the author say this, Julia Cameron, she says that we often resist what we need the most. And so she's like, you might not have time to do all the tasks, but you should use two baselines to do them. The ones that you really, really want to do, that you feel drawn to do, and the ones that you really, really don't want to do. And the ones that you feel neutral about, you can discard or save for later. But the ones that you really want to do and the ones that you really don't want to do, because of the fact that we often resist the things that we need the most. And so when I saw that Doechii made a whole docuseries of each week, and I watched her part 1, and I saw that she was actually way more thorough than I've been being with the book. I've kind of been reading it, and even though I've been reading it and enjoying it, and I've done my morning pages every single day. That's one thing though. Since I started the book, I haven't missed a single morning pages. I love doing morning pages, actually. Haven't missed it a single day. However, there's a lot of tasks that I did skip over, and a lot of questions that I feel like maybe I asked myself in my brain, but I didn't truly really think about them. And so I got to chapter 6, and then I was just like, you know what? I'm going to start over, and I'm going to do this docuseries of me going through the book. And so I started over. I reread chapter 1 today, and I also wrote down my thoughts and my answers to the assignments and the questions and stuff. So we're going to get into it. So first of all, the 2 things that you need to know about this book is the main 2 assignments that it tells you to do on your creative recovery. So this course is about creative recovery. Again, recovering your creativity, breaking through your creative block, blah, blah, blah. There's 2 things that it tells you to do. Morning pages every single morning, which is essentially writing first thing in the morning, 3 pages, and then an artist date once a week. And the artist date is essentially you taking yourself out on a date, pretty much, but just yourself. You can't bring anyone else with you. And it's something that you genuinely, your inner child just wants to do or has wanted to do, and that you haven't really given yourself the space to do or the time to do. There's a lot of things that I haven't given myself the time to do because I haven't allowed myself to do it because I barely have time. So every ounce of time I have, I either want to use it to rest or use it to be productive, create, work on my business, whatever. So, but yeah, that's why I'm reading this book. All right, so every week you have tasks and those two things that I mentioned. So the first task, it says every morning set your clock half an hour early, which is basically saying, okay, do your morning pages. 2, take yourself on an artist date. So my artist date for the past couple weeks, because it's weird, because I even though I'm starting the series over, I'm really on week 6 of the book. So I've been writing morning pages and doing artist dates for maybe 3 weeks, because I really haven't only been reading 1 page or 1 chapter a week. I've probably been doing 2 chapters a week. So I did my morning pages every day. My artist date so far has been me learning gymnastics, which has been amazing, honestly, because I've always been a solid athlete, but my weakest link when it came up to athleticism has always been my flexibility and mobility. Even when I was stretching consistently, it was just always my flexibility and my mobility and gymnastics class has really been attacking that weakness directly, and it has made me very uncomfortable. But I feel like my mobility is growing so much faster than it's ever had from me doing anything else. So it's pretty cool. Like, I've never been able to do a bridge, and my bridge is currently still very ugly, but I can kind of do one now. So that's cool. And within the next 2 weeks, I should have a proper backflip. So that's what my artist dates have been about. I also took myself on an artist date today, and I went to Las Olas in Fort Lauderdale, and I bought myself some of the Ray-Bans smart glasses because I've been wanting some for a while. I feel like they're going to be super epic for music content, so stay tuned for that. Like, that point of view camera is actually mad good. Like, the girl at the store, she had some on, and she showed me some of the videos that she's taken with it, and they were actually like beautiful videos. Like, smart glasses are crazy. So I'm gonna be making some POV videos of me like just performing, like, and them shits are gonna be sick. So stay tuned. I would put them on the camera, but like, maybe next time. You'll see me performing with them very soon. Trust. So task 3 was time travel. List 3 old enemies of your creative self-worth. Please be as specific as possible in doing this exercise. Your historic monsters are the building blocks of your core negative beliefs. So essentially, creative traumas that we've had in the past. This video is about to get deep. But creative traumas that we've had in the past is what she's talking about here. Yes, rotten Sister Ann Rita from 5th grade does count, and the rotten thing she said to you does matter. Put her in. This is your monster hall of fame. More monsters will come to you as you work through your recovery. It is always necessary to acknowledge creative injuries and grieve them. Otherwise, they become creative scar tissue and block your growth. So, creative monsters. So I feel like my main creative monster, and I'm going to mention my dad a lot in this video, but I have zero beef with my dad. I love my dad. He is a great father, and he did his absolute best. And the moment I moved out on my own and I realized how hard it is to be extremely successful in life because of like just how difficult it is, I gained even more respect for my dad. And so I have and me and my dad also have a great relationship. Say all of that as a disclaimer. But the reality of the situation is my dad was not a big supporter of my creative endeavors. He came from a world where school was the savior of, education was the savior in the traditional sense. Education is the savior, but it's education, it's literal education, like knowledge. It's not a degree. But my dad came from a world where a degree was the savior, and because of that, the way we were raised was not very encouraging of our creative side. It was always our creative side was always a hobby, not something that you could live off of. It was always books first and everything else second. And I feel like that's a creative monster because in my current journey, I still struggle with that headspace. If you watched my video where I was talking before this, not the one where I'm in traffic, but I think it was part 11. I talked about how I let my business side take over. And I feel like that mindset was really implanted in me by the way that I was raised. As one of the reasons being, I'm going to get to the other monsters in a second, but I zoned out for a second because I started thinking about it. But essentially, I let my business side take over my creative side because I have a lifelong habit of putting business first, art second. But my ultimate goal is to be an artist, is to be a successful, financially abundant, famous, all of the things, performing artist. So you see how that is a monster, right? My other creative monsters come from what my brain perceives as past failures. So I've put a lot of effort into a lot of things, and they didn't always work out. And a lot of times my brain likes to show me those things and be like, this is why you're going to fail again, because you're a failure, essentially. I know I'm not, but these are the things that the brain tells you when you're in the mix, when you're creating in the moment. And so struggling through music school was another one of my monsters. So when I auditioned for music school, pretty much the only musical skill that I had was I knew how to read music. And I was an okay is generous. I was a new guitar player. So it was kind of like a Cinderella story. Like, I picked up guitar, I was playing guitar for a year, and when I wanted to audition for the jazz program, but I looked at the requirements for what the jazz guitarist had to do to get in, and I was like, there's absolutely no way I'm going to get in because I can't do any of that. But the classical guitar program was you just had to play two contrasting pieces, one fast, one slow. And I knew how to read music, so I was just like, I can do that. So I went to the classical guitar director of Georgia State University, shout out Dr. Enlow, and I was like, I really want to be a part of the classical guitar program. Can you give me the easiest pieces that would still be at a level enough to like, obviously if you play Mary Had a Little Lamb at the audition, they're going to think you're a joke. So like, can you give me the easiest pieces that would actually work, that would actually get me in if I can play them well? And he did. And I practiced the shit out of those pieces for the next 3 months, auditioned for the music school, and got in. But when I got in music school, I got ran over. It was brutal. Maybe I'll do another video on my music school experience, but music school was brutal. It was tough. And I remember one moment where I was like kind of complaining to Dr. Enlow, now being in music school, about how I didn't feel like I could keep up. And I remember he said that maybe I shouldn't have let you in the music school. or maybe I shouldn't have allowed you in the program. Maybe you just weren't ready. And that hurt, you know? It felt like my imposter syndrome was not just a syndrome. It was literally, he confirmed it. You know, maybe you're not supposed to be here. And yeah. The fourth, and the reason why the book is telling you to do these things is, I feel like when you bring these things to light, you're able to kind of see them for what they are, which is literally just experiences. Another thing that this book does in the future, and in pages, or rather chapters further in the future, is it tells you to do, like, start doing those things that you don't allow yourself to do anymore because of a lack of time. And one of those things is, I used to really love studying astronomy. And I've gotten back into studying it because of this book. And it reminds you about how small we really are. Like, we're fucking tiny. Earth is huge to us, and Earth barely even exists when it comes up. Like, it doesn't even, like, Earth almost doesn't exist. The whole planet is almost irrelevant in terms of the entire universe. So when you're able to identify these experiences and identify them as just experiences and nothing else, you can detach yourself from the feelings or the negative habits that these things give you, because it's these little moments that set you up to actually fail by self-sabotaging yourself. And a lot of times creative blocks are just that. You created the block by the way that you internalize certain things that happen to you, or certain things that people say to you. So task 4 is time travel again. Select and write out one horror story from your Monster Hall of Fame. You do not need to write long or much. So just one story. I already told one story about the music school. This one's probably like the craziest one. Or rather, I feel like the one that hit me the hardest. And again, zero beef with my dad. Because this was a time, to be honest, I feel like the biggest barrier, the biggest contributor to my creative block is the experience, the season of when I lost my mom. And I'm not going to get into what happened and all of that, but I will say that obviously the whole family was grieving, and it made us it divided us in a lot of ways. I feel like me and my sister probably got tighter, but I feel like my brother and my father, I got more distant from them. And one of those reasons is my dad, obviously, that was his partner. He knew her better than I did. But it was this time, it was actually this event that triggered me to go all in on music anyway, because it was at the moment where I lost my mom that I realized I'm gonna fucking die too. And I need to create a life that I actually want. Like, I'm not going to just live a shitty life and then die. It's like, no, I want to actually enjoy the experience here. And at the time, I was a science major because I didn't know what else to major in, even though I wanted to be an art student, a music student. I was a science major for 3 years. I was getting ready to graduate college as a science major. And when I lost my mom, like after I internalized all of that pain that it gave me and decided, like, basically after I slightly healed through what the fuck had just happened to me, I made the decision to change, to audition for the music school and change my major to music. And I didn't tell my dad that I did it for months, but when I eventually told him, because he kept asking me, when are you going to graduate? When are you going to graduate? And I was just like, well, funny story about that. I basically started school over. Yeah, he was pissed. And again, we were all grieving. So I remember one day we had like probably 20 arguments already, but this specific argument was probably the worst one. And I was literally trying to explain to him that it's not the end of the world that I want to be a musician. It's not the end of the world that I want to pursue creativity. Like, look at all the people who didn't even go to school, didn't even go to college, and have built billion-dollar businesses, and all the artists who are millionaires and billionaires who never went to college, or just all the musicians, how much musicians make when they become successful. And I'm breaking all this down, and my dad's like, but you're not them. Like, he literally said, like, but you're not smart like them. You're not talented like them. And the crazy part about it is I rejected that state. Like, I rejected what he said instantly. And I feel like this is the most disrespectful I've ever been to my dad, but I said, no, you're not smart enough or talented enough to be a successful musician. And obviously I just said it really calm, but I went off because I didn't like that he said that to me. And even though I rejected it immediately and identified immediately that he was speaking from a place of hurt and grief and maybe even projecting his insecurities on me. Again, I have no beef with my dad to this day, but that experience, those words are still in my brain. Like, I didn't forget. And every time I fail, every time I put out a musical project and nobody cares to listen to it, or every time I put out content and nobody wants to see it, or I get no views, or I post music and I get no engagement with my posts, I hear that voice. And I have to consistently decide that I'm not going to believe it. And so that is one situation. And the fifth task is actually to write a letter to the editor, basically to the monster, in your defense. What the heck? Yo, I skipped so many pages. I didn't even realize I skipped this many pages in my journal. But basically, it was to write a letter. The next exercise was to write a letter. This video is getting so long, but it is what it is. If you watch till the end, drop a comment if you watch till the end, and you're the GOAT. I will personally send you. I'm dropping my first physical product, and if you watch to the end, or even if you watch up to this point, comment below and I'll put you on the pre-order list for free. I'll just have to email you so that I can get your shipping address and stuff and ship it out to you when it's ready. But yeah, comment below. I guess, yeah, I'll reach out to you, tell you what it is, and see if you actually want it. But I wrote this letter to my dad, because it says write a letter to the monster, right? And the monster is figurative. I don't consider my dad a monster, and like I understand that there's no manual on parenting. My dad is an immigrant, or was an immigrant, and he learned how to survive the way he learned, and the path that I'm taking is not the way that he learned. So I can't expect him to know how to guide me exactly where I need to go. But I sum up everything in this letter. We're getting deep. We're getting vulnerable. But hey, this is what art is about. I've gotten hard and unvulnerable for like the past couple years, so I guess this is really good for me. So, my letter to Dad. I have no ill will, resentment, or any negative feelings towards you. You've been a phenomenal father. I love you. Though you are not perfect, all-knowing, and you are not me. You didn't know to encourage my creative endeavors because you didn't know. It didn't exist where you came from. You were grieving Mom, probably, definitely, even more than I was when you said what you said, so I forgive you. But what you said damaged me. Raising me the way you did brought many good habits to my life, but it has also severely damaged my ability to pursue my creative endeavors, my life endeavors. But it's not your fault. You did your best. But from this day forward, I relentlessly discard your teachings, mindsets, and habits that do not serve my life goals and that block my creativity. You are an amazing father, and I will continue to use the many teachings that you gave me that I believe to be true. But from now on, I am my own father, and the great creator is my guide. I love you, your son, Digi. And so, yeah. Number 6, list 3 old champions of your creative self-worth. This is your hall of champions, those who wish you and your creativity well. Be specific. So my creative champions are definitely like friends and acquaintances that I feel like really like boosted me up and made me feel like I was actually doing something when I first started making music. And yeah, like my friends have always been music connoisseurs as well. So even though I feel like there were certain moments where I started taking their opinion a little too seriously, I feel like they have definitely been a big part of my creative journey in terms of me continuing to keep going with what's the word? With like encouragement and actually like, yo, you like this shit is good. Like, you're actually doing something here. And so, and one of my exes that I was actually dating during this time in my life, when I first started making music in 2013, she was actually very supportive and very like instrumental in terms of like convincing me to make that tough decision of switching my major to music, because the hell that I knew that I was in for when I changed my major, or if I changed my major, was very much like made it a very difficult decision. And that hell actually did break loose once I made the decision. It's very interesting how life works. I feel like a lot of people say that things aren't as scary as you think they're going to be. Like, you shouldn't be afraid of taking risks, because once you take the risk, it's not as scary as you thought it would be. And in my experience, they have been just as scary, if not scarier, on the other side of taking the risk. It's like all those fears come true real quick, and then it's a shithole. And then you have the feeling of, yo, was I even supposed to do that? Because this shit is crazy. But yeah, so my three champions are my homie Jamorn. He, on my last project that I put out that I was super insecure about, because when I first started making music, I confined myself to only being a producer. And so within the past couple of years, maybe 5 years, I decided that I had more in me than just instrumentals, and I wanted to use my voice to express myself on my instrumentals. And so Jamorn really, he sent me a whole like Anthony Fantano breakdown of a demo that I sent him. And even though I was super insecure about the song, part of me like felt like it was good. Like, I was proud of it, even though I was really insecure about it. And he gave me like a whole breakdown, and it was like a positive review too. He had some constructive criticism, but it was overall a really positive review, and it made me feel really good. And then his friend Ishmael, which I'm cool with him as well, but we're not as close. But he always has uplifting words to say about my music. He's one of the few people who really believe, I feel like, who actually believe in me. I feel like there's, most people kind of just hear my music and they just like move on. But he's like one of the only people who I feel like see something similar to what I see in myself, in terms of like, I feel like I have it. I feel like I have it. Like, I have what it takes to be great, to be at the top, to be on the charts, to be known for what I do. But it just, every time I release something, that just doesn't happen. But like, he sees that, and he encourages me. So, and another one is one acquaintance an ex-girlfriend's friend who was really, really like excited about my first remix project that I dropped. And it was one of those situations where like I'm not used to seeing somebody so excited about something that I made. And I feel like these three creative champions, they just like the level of excitement that they had about my creation was what really made them stand out to me, and what really made it encourage me, because no one else really feels that way about my music, and except for my sister. My sister always supports my music. My sister still talks about like one of the first beats that I ever made that I feel like is garbage booty butt cheeks right now, but she always talks about how good it was. so yeah. Now, moving on to 7. 7 was, I kind of just did 6 and 7 in the same like the same vein, or the same, what am I trying to say, in one go. So 7 was to select and write out one happy piece of encouragement. So I told you about the review that my homie gave me. 8 is about imaginary lives. Basically, if you had 5 lives that aren't this one, what would you be? What would you do? What would you commit to? And this one was kind of easy for me because I'm all over the place, and I have so many interests, but pro basketball player is definitely one of them. That was my first love. Astronaut, because I love space. Marine biologist, jazz pianist, jazz guitarist. And even though in a way I am those last two, because I do play jazz piano and jazz guitar. However, they're kind of secondary to my performing artist goals. They're more so tools that I use to create than just being a jazz musician. And I feel like in another life I would be just strictly a jazz musician. A gymnast, an author, fashion model, actor, quantum physicist, mathematician, because I love math and science. And a professional Smash Bros. Player. A professional Smash Bros. Player, a fighting game player. It would probably be Smash. Yeah, 100%. Because at one point, that was like what I was pursuing. Let's see. Now, number 9. Affirmations and blurts. So, I actually didn't do this one. Oh, I did do this one. I just did it in the back. So, basically, it tells you to write an affirmation and then write the blurt, which the blurt is basically your negative mind that counteracts your affirmation. Like if you struggle with negative self-talk, the moment you start trying to use affirmations, your negative self-talk is going to talk back. And basically it tells you to write down an affirmation, and then write down the blurt, which is the negative rebuttal, and then turn that negative rebuttal into a positive one. And so I said, I am a brilliant and prolific musician, but I had some blurts that came out, and one of them was, I'm not talented enough to be a successful artist. But I flipped that into the positive and said, I'm more than talented enough to be a successful artist. Now, another blurt is, being an artist won't make me rich, because that's one thing. Just as bad as I want to be an artist for a living, I want to be rich. I'm not going to say I've never, that's cap. At one point, I believed that I was okay with being a starving artist and just like living the van life as long as I could create. And then I realized that that's stupid, and that I will never think that again, because that very thought is what I feel like contributed to just a lot of problems that I had in my life. So, but I have this, but basically, not only do I want to be an artist, but I want to be rich as well. And I don't want to compromise either. I don't want to be rich without being an artist, and I don't want to be an artist without being rich. And so my brain battles with itself, because it still hears those like teachings from younger that art is not going to pay the bills. But I flipped that and I said, I am a rich artist, because the world has shown there's plenty of examples of rich artists. Taylor Swift's a billionaire. Jay-Z's a billionaire. Beyonce's almost a billionaire. Like, yeah, and even if we're not talking billions, there's plenty of rich artists. So that is factually incorrect. Like the negative self-talk of art won't pay the bills is factually incorrect. If you do what you have to do and you get to that level, it will pay the bills and more. I also have this blurt that everything is harder for me than others because I am not as smart or capable as others. And this came from me internalizing and personalizing my failures, or areas in where I fell short in life. And maybe, like, everything in life when you're trying to be great is hard, and I've always been a little bit insecure about how much harder it felt like I had to work than other people, because it felt like I was always going to be behind if I didn't sacrifice everything to do those things, to like work. And I turned that into a positive by saying, I am capable of whatever my heart desires because I am intelligent and talented. And I'm not really big on affirmations because, again, I'm real logical and factual, and I'm like, yo, if you do the work, you get better. But at the end of the day, I understand that affirmations can be powerful to get you to do the work. And so the last exercise was to take your artist for a walk, a 20-minute walk. And I don't really think I did that, but basically that's week 3, or that's week 1. And then every week you have to do a check-in as well. How many days did you do your morning pages? I did my morning pages every single day since I started reading this book. Did you do your artist date this week? Yes, I did. I did gymnastics, which was dope. And were there any issues this week that you consider significant for your recovery? Yeah, I mean, I just learned that. I learned a couple things, but I'm going to put those in part in the next part because I didn't even expect this video to get this long. But that is chapter 1 or week 1 of The Artist's Way. I will probably try to decipher or try to make the other parts much shorter. But if you stuck around for the whole thing, you're a real one. And I appreciate you. And again, if you did, comment below that you want a free pre-order for my first product that I'm putting out. And think of it as my first piece of merch. And yeah, and I'll get in touch with you and I'll get you that for free. Peace. Have a good night. It is literally 12:52 over here. I'm going to try to ramble less in the parts to come, but I'm going to do a series. This is week 1. We're going to go week 1 all the way up to week 12. And then hopefully by the end of it all, I have the tools to break out of this creative block and never deal with another one again. Or at least when I do, know exactly what to do to get out of it as soon as possible. So thank you for watching. Peace out. Mwah.